Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Optics in Action, where we spotlight leaders with vision and clarity. And today, I'm honored to have a special guest. Her name is Sandra Coker, and she is the CEO of Human Power Solutions. So I'm super excited to have you on the show today. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So the first thing I always like to ask guests, this is one common theme, is why are you passionate about what you do? So before we get into the what, let's talk about why are you passionate about what it is that you do?
I think, Human Power Solutions, it's in the name. We really are very passionate about the human beings in our workplaces. And, when you can go in and you can work with a group of new supervisors or new managers and help to explain to them, conflict or discipline doesn't mean yelling at someone. It means, you can actually have a conversation and it can go well, and the light bulb moments that go off and those things. And I think, with that kind of an example is you're really helping people not only in their work lives, you're also helping them in their personal lives as well. So it's
Yeah.
super cool.
Look, making an impact on people is a big deal. And I think a lot of us, maybe not all, but a lot of us have had situations where we might have had a boss that was sort of overbearing and didn't treat us with respect. And that's a terrible, terrifying place to be in. And so tell me more about that. Like how do you help work with managers and leaders to get them beyond that, to recognize and find alternate ways to deal with difficult situations?
Yeah, so one of the first things that we kind of show in any of our leadership, facilitations, workshops, we often will show a video called A Crisis in Leadership. And it's an older video from a CEO who's been around for a very long time. And one of his measurements for his company was the divorce rate in his company. And it's a really interesting thing because if you think about it, when you go into the workplace, you spend a lot of time there. And if you're treated poorly in that workplace, you're going to go home or you're not going to go home, and you're not going to be in the mood to really engage with the people that you care about and that you love and the people that you're working for. Whereas if you have a really good working environment, a good working culture, and just one that's open communication where you feel valued, you're going to go home and have more conversation and be engaged and energized. And I think a lot of leaders just lose sight of that, and they just forget that the people that are actually doing the work, that are growing the businesses for them, are the people they should really be
Yeah.
working with. Yeah.
Wow, that caught my attention. All right, I've never heard that being used as a KPI in a business before. What's the divorce rate of our employees? And I think that's an incredible context in which to use it, right? I think as leaders or CEOs, we may not be able to influence every aspect of our employees' lives, but I think that's definitely something to be thinking about, is in terms of employee satisfaction in their personal lives. There was something you said that triggered a memory for me. I had a wise mentor many years ago share with me. He said, Ryan, you spend more of your waking hours in life with your coworkers than you do your family, so you might as well find a way to enjoy it.
Hmm.
And if I think about the context of what you just shared, it was really about that. It's
Yeah.
it's that, wow, we're not just impacting the business bottom line. We're not just impacting the culture of the business. You're impacting employees and how they go home and treat their families when they're treated with respect and where they're treated with the level of love and concern at work. It makes them more emotionally available at home as well. Wow.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
power. That's powerful stuff. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's really it's an interesting way of looking at it. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that are like us, but I think our philosophy really differentiates us from the pack because
Yeah.
we're looking at everybody and everything.
That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about what you do. So you told us a little bit about why you're passionate about it. You told us a little bit about that introductory video you share. But what is it that you really do? What is it that you help companies to achieve, and how do you do that?
So we are Human Power Solutions. We like to position ourselves as a fractional chief learning officer. So we're not in there providing training for companies. We're in there professionally developing their whole employee base. So we work with our CEOs and our CHROs with, what is going to really benefit the employees as far as their skills, how they're going to contribute to the company, and all of those kinds of things. So whether it's leadership or communication or sales, we also take a look at the processes in their businesses. Are they profitable? Are they really doing things as efficiently as possible? And we partner with companies like yours, Ryan, where we bring in the experts to help them with those things. We also provide ESL, English as a second language, and technical skills. So our company is very different when it comes to just doing training. It's really taking a look at the business as a whole, and where can we help to fill in the gaps that are going on that aren't moving the needle for the company, and how can we help to move the needle for the company?
Well, it's definitely one of the things, even in this short period of time or the reasonably short period of time that we've known each other, I've seen that in you, that introducing experts and bringing, like, genuinely caring holistically about your customers is a core value that you bring to the table. And I think even what you just shared about leadership training and management training, like training managers how to interact, but then also like ESL training and stuff like that. Like, you're caring for every level of the organization. How do you do that effectively? I mean, that you have a lot of different personality types, you have a lot of different things going on. How do you do that effectively with your clients?
So I built out a team. I've been in business for about 5 years, actually last year. Started the business in 2019.
Right
And
before COVID. Wow. So you went through like the whole chaos right after you started it.
yeah, like 4 months in, it was like, oh, here we are. But it was fine. We were able to, I had a lot of knowledge with this virtual platform. So we were able to serve our clients even during COVID, especially during the furloughs and things like
Yeah.
that. But over the last 5 years, we've built out a bench of really, really great experts. So we have our HR experts who go in and deliver, how do you onboard employees? How do you do hiring and things like that? We have experts that are in sales and marketing and how to utilize AI. We've got people like yourselves, like process improvement people. So that's really how we do it, is we partner with the right people with the right programs for that company. And, Human Power Solutions ourselves, our group, we deliver all of the leadership and communication and all of that. And we're kind of the general contract, chief learning officer, but we're like a general contractor. You need some wiring, you need some plumbing, here's the people that are going to do it. And I think what makes us so different is we're not just putting a facilitator in and they're checking the box for this, whatever it is that they need. We give our clients a choice of facilitators. We introduce them to a couple just to make sure they get the right personality fit. And then our facilitator will work to customize whatever their expertise is to deliver what the company needs, not necessarily what we need. So it's been a really great process.
I wrote a book a few years ago. I wrote two books now, but the first one was about the P5 rocket. So I said, look, every organization has a purpose. That's like the nose cone. They have a product, they have a payload, a product. So how do they create value? How do they bring value to fulfill that purpose? The third one is the performance, how they measure if they're on the right path. The next one is the people, which I think is super important to what you're talking about. Then there's the process. The processes are at the bottom of the rocket, kind of help you guide. The people are the most important part of the P5 rocket. And then I used to say that the propulsion of the rocket, like the bottom of the rocket, like the energy, is the human energy that propels the rocket. So you've hit on three really. You talked about people, you talked about process, and you talked about the human energy. That is like the core of what makes organizations succeed. So how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what? We've got people, and that's the most important thing. Processes just enable people, but you got people, the most important thing. You've got human energy that's really pushing it. How did you reach that conclusion? How did you get where you are to start talking about this and making this impact?
I think over the year, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've owned a few businesses, and I think with this particular business, it's just in talking to people. I shake a lot of hands, I kiss a lot of babies, I do a lot of networking, have toured a bunch of different manufacturing plants, auto body shops, dealerships, et cetera. And the more I talk to owners and more I talk to founders and CEOs, the less connected they were to their employees.
Mm.
And each time I talk about process improvement and we talk about doing all these things, I always start with, you have to start with leadership, because without leadership, you're not going to be able to hold the employees, accountable. You're not going to be able to train the employees in order to get the processes in place. And so you have to have really good leaders taking care of your employees so they're motivated to do the processes. You can spend all
Yeah.
this money on all these systems and everything else, but if your employees are like, we don't really care about this, what good is it?
That's right. I know they're talking about, artificial intelligence and general artificial intelligence and things like that. But until that stuff really starts taking over all of our companies require people, and people require culture, and they require engagement, and there's basic human needs to
Mhm.
be productive. So you mentioned about training and mentioned about leadership and stuff like that. How do you go about assessing what type of needs, what type of training a company has that is going to enable them to get to the next level?
Yeah, so we will go in, I'll go in, my team, and sit down and just talk about the gaps. So a lot of times people always ask me, oh, well, how do we refer you? What do we, and most of the time we're losing employees. We can't keep people. Our turnover rate is just super high. Well, right there's a leadership problem or
Yeah.
a process problem or both. Or we're growing by acquisition and now we're trying to meld two cultures together. Or we're a family business and we're trying to pass the business to the next generation. So there's just so many different layers to it. So for us, it's really getting to know what the goals are of the people that have brought us in. And a lot of times they bring us in for one thing, and I'm like, that's actually not what you need. And we just have these conversations. And so I ask a lot of questions, and we have a pretty in-depth needs analysis. And throughout whatever it is that we planned out, if we find, hey, listen, there's another gap here, then we make an adjustment.
I think you've mentioned a whole bunch of things that I know we could explore for a long time. One of the things that I want to pick up on though is you talked about family businesses and you talked about the kind of intergenerational transfers and those types of things. And I know that both on the process side and on the people side, there's a big impact on how family businesses transfer between generations. Tell us a little bit more about that and about how the people side of that, how do you deal with the generational transfers and what are some of the challenges that folks have going through that?
Yeah, the transitions are tough because for the owners and the founders, should I say, everything's up here, right?
Yeah.
They have everything like right here, and
And
they're
it's their core
trying.
identity, right? Like they
Yeah,
they know everything. They knew the first piece of equipment that was ever bought. They know the first employee was ever hired. Like everything's in their head. And it's
yeah.
also their identity in many cases. Like founders, their identity. So they've got to let go of certain things, but they've also got to transfer the knowledge that they have. So how do you help folks with that?
So we have a family transition coach who helps the founders look forward. So instead of letting go, it's where are they going,
Mm,
right? So we work first with the founders on that concept. You're not letting go of your business, you're moving forward in whatever the next phase of life is. So we make sure that mentally the founders and the owners understand that their direction and they can see forward instead of looking back. So, which I think is very powerful. And then we work with them, with people like yourselves and say, okay, what are the processes or are there processes in place? And let's build them out. Sometimes it's a daughter, son, sometimes it's a cousin, sometimes it's a son-in-law. It doesn't, so what happens a lot of times is the transition into the family unit is the people that are getting it next are in silos, right?
mm,
So someone's handling sales, someone's handling operations, and you have to now work with this group as a team. So
yeah.
it's not an easy thing to do. So, and we really look at it in stages. And we look at it with, let's get the founders mentally ready to move forward, right? And then we bring everybody together and say, okay, where are we as far as processes? So, you can't do it quickly. It's definitely a process, but we have a very, very good team from there. And then we work with the employees. We do employee engagement survey. We talk about, what are some of the things that they would like to see happen, during this transition. So we try to bring everybody together in that transfer so that everyone feels like they're a part of it, so that the new owners and the new people in leadership don't lose the employees who were loyal to the founders.
That's super important stuff. And I know I come at a lot of things through the sort of the different lens of process, right? You come at it through people. It's the intersection of these two things that really is super important. And, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking about that. You said, oh, sometimes a founder has everything in their head. And I think that's where a lot of second gen businesses, when I start working with them, it's really, I have a CEO of a client. It's a female, and she's like, I now understand why my dad was never home, right? Like this was it was a mental processing that she had, that her father was never home, and she's like, he just knew everything. He would go if they opened a new office, if they opened a new warehouse, if they he had all of it in his head, and she was looking at it through the lens of, if we're going to scale beyond what we are today, the only way to do that is to systematize things so that we can delegate them and enable and empower other people. Sometimes the founder didn't have that luxury because they were trying to do cash flow and they're trying to do all these things. Sometimes you get that, we've got a stable business. How do we now take it to the next level? And you've got to have the people dynamics right. You've got to have the processes in place, and then you can really move forward. So
it's exciting. It's really exciting, especially with the new technology that's out, and there's so many different tools and you still need the people, but, I think with transferring, from one to another or any kind of acquisition, we have a lot of tools with us, for us right now that we're able to use to make that transition a little bit easier and more scalable, right? So the reason why we want the founders to look forward is because we want the new owners to think differently and think out of the box, and don't just think the way that the founders think. We want them to expand their ideas and create their own kind of vision for how to move the company forward. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have so much more that we could talk about, but I just want to say thank you, Sandra, for taking the time today to talk to us about all this people stuff related to business transfer and leadership and training and engaging people. How do folks find out more about this, or how do they contact you to learn more?
So the best way, I think, is on LinkedIn, Sandra Coker. So LinkedIn, .com/ Sandra Coker. I think that's the best place. Our website is linked there, but you can see a little bit about who I am as a person and philosophy and all those kinds of good things. So that would be the best place.
Before we drop off, I also want to ask you one other question. So you've got a book that's coming out, or it may already be out by the time this episode goes live. How do people find that website or find out more about the book? And tell us just a little bit about the book.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the book. It's really about the internal culture and how your internal customers actually affect the profitability of your business. So it's called People Profit, and the website is peopleprofitbook.com. And we're really excited about how just to kind of have people think a little bit differently about the people inside their organization and how they actually affect how successful your business can be.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Sandra, for being on this episode of Optics in Action, where we spotlight leaders with vision and clarity. And after knowing you for quite some time and this conversation today, it's very clear to me that you have vision and clarity. So I'm honored that we had you on the episode today. Just want to thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ryan. Have a great day.
Hey there, my name is Ryan Weiss, and I am the host of the Optics in Action podcast, where we spotlight visionary leaders who bring clarity and innovation to their industries. If you are interested in being a guest, or if you know someone who would be, you can find more information about the podcast and listen to previous episodes at opticsinaction.com. We'd be thrilled to have you on the show and can't wait to hear your story.